He had to do, well, I'll just come down there and read it to the group. He had to do an ethnography. He had to study a subculture. You guys were in. Just to kind of give you some examples of what other people in the class did. Some studied a lunchroom table of gals that met every every noon. Some people did oh gosh, what else was it? A special needs class. And a couple of the kids studied a Buddhist temple that's up in Andover. I didn't know there was one up there.
Andover?
They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
There was one up there anyway, he got an A on this. This is not the final copy. There's a few grammatical errors in here, but I wanted to kind of read it to you guys. He studied the choir twice at rehearsal and twice at performances, for lack of a better term. Thing is, after he did the 2 rehearsals, he actually misplaced the notebook with all the notes. You can't find it. I figure he dropped it in the snow outside, probably a snowbank. We'll find it here in a couple of weeks. So some of the stuff, he's got a bunch of quotes from me there because he had to rely a little bit more on me, but he did a lot of it from memory too and stuff. But anyway, he did get an A on this. And he right away he decided to call this beast the gang. Because what does Balder call us all the time when there's people around and he can't use what he really calls us? So, all right. Okay. So, any questions on what I'm going to do? Okay. So this is just his observations. He observes everything that goes on. Some of the things you might like, some you might not, but that's okay. All right.
Do we need to have this on videotape?
No. There's one line in here I'm kind of wondering about, but okay, I'm going to get somebody in trouble, but never mind. Okay. Crack. On the 3rd heave, the door finally budged and I was able to step inside the practice room. About time this damn door opened. Almost late for my first observation. How bad would that have looked? Between those icy stairs and the store, they should at least put up a warning. The lady before me didn't have any trouble. Oh well, let's get this stupid thing over with. Once in the room, any hard feelings I had floated away. Shaking the pre-winter chill from my coat, my skin tingles at the perfect temperature of the room. A comfy t-shirt worked, but a favorite sweatshirt wouldn't be out of the question. The aroma of mixed perfumes and colognes from the day at the office wouldn't fit anywhere but in this choir room. The personalities that fill the room make the ordinary pastel walls shine in a warm way. Records and abstract instrumental paintings decorate the walls, not overcrowding the area, but giving it a unique flavor to the room. Jackets sprawl across the back wall showed that no formalities were needed, and I fell into a relaxed state as though I were home. I might as well have sat on the floor cross-legged in meditation as I let this choir's world surround me, all my troubles lost in the wind. A smile crawls onto my face and never leaves while I'm around the choir. Once someone enters the room, they have about 30 to 45 seconds to experience this. Then the ride begins. Smiling faces crowd my vision, and the room of conversation springs up anywhere I go. Mark S. asks how my college search is going, and gives me a little insight on colleges I'm looking into, though I don't believe I told him which ones I was interested in. Mom greets me with a big hug and asks how the leg is doing, but she knows as much as I do. After 15 minutes of overwhelming kindness and conversations, I'm able to sit down off to the side, or so I thought. Then Heavy catches my eye, and only God knows where the conversation ideas sprout from him. I've seen some of these people at Mass, but even those I've never met are just as willing to chat. Somehow the people I know are different in this environment. There's no need to hold back anything, no discrimination against my action. As I'm talking to my dad for a brief bit, Heavy comes up and slaps him on the ass, yelling, "Woo! Can I have some more?" My dad feels the need to respond. Anytime, Heavy laughs, off to his random destination. As the last... I said
Me?
I don't even remember.
You know.
As their laughs dissipate through the choir, I felt the need to make sure that I'm in the right place. The cross is hung around the necks, peek out through the collars of work clothes. A Jesus replica is nailed to the cross by the door to the cafeteria. Words like faith, believe, and courage scroll across the black chairs in gold, and choir music is sprawled across the room. Okay, maybe I am in a Catholic choir room. The cast. The St. Gerards Choir was created in 1971 along with the church. They practice each Thursday starting at 7 p.m. for roughly 2 hours. Performances as a large group are at the 9 a.m. Mass Sundays and special Masses like Christmas, and smaller numbers perform for other Masses. The volunteer choir contains roughly 40 people with very busy schedules, so not all make it to rehearsal. Luckily, rehearsals aren't required. Most of the members are in their 30s and 40s, but there are 4 teens in the group, so they have a wide spectrum of age and experience. Almost every member has had choir experience along the way, whether it is in high school or professional singing, and occupations range from teachers to chip salesmen. Pat Balder has been the choir's director since February 16th, 1988. Sam describes Balder as a top-quality A frontman. Okay, I'm just kidding. You must be paying him. Sam, yes. He does all the directing while playing lead guitar for the choir. Balder has his own recording studio, is working on his 7th solo album, produces music for other groups, is part of a music ministry called Bigger Than Us, is on the faculty of St. Thomas teaching music, writing, and performance, and has been on St. Gerards' payroll as director of music for 21 years. He remarks that it's all music for him. To join the St. Gerards Choir, an informal audition must be set up with Balder to determine music capabilities and which section the person would fit into. Balder has rejected very few people in his tenure. Other requirements include having tough skin. Anyone who joins has to be able to take some crap. If anyone does anything stupid, we jump on them immediately. We'll find anything to pick on each other, my dad warns. After someone gets past that, it's all downhill. There are no clothing requirements as members come in whatever they are wearing beforehand, from work clothes to sweats. Then get those vocal cords ready and come to the show. Act 1. If St. Gerards wants to make a little extra money, they should put up an audience section in this room and charge tickets, because this choir's rehearsal are crazy shows. Hey gang, Baldy yells to the choir as he claps his hands and raises his arm to help draw attention to his location. Just thought I'd let you know that we have an invisible ghost observing us for the next couple of weeks, he informs us as his open hand leads their eyes to me. While what and what for is spread through the choir explained it's for a school paper. I'm observing a subculture report and you're it. This seemed to be enough of an explanation for most of them, as Balder had them under control in seconds and ready to move on into a song. Balder strapped on his guitar, bobbed his torso to the left, and the song began. As Balder has the practice room set up in sections in which he feels it's easier to work with a specific section and learn the music. From left to right in front of him is organized as sopranos, altos, tenors, and then basses. He has the weekly repeating tunes on the wall by the entrance to the cabinet-sized slotted sorter. Next to the sorter is a sign-up board for this week's masses, so Balder knows who's available for solos or how big a choir he'll have for masses. Behind where he stands is a table with music that Balder has arranged to fit the gospel reading of the week after prayer on it. To his immediate right is a piano that Betsy sits at, and a drum set sits in the back, gathering dust like the basketball hoop lying next to it. Somehow not out of place for this choir room. I never noticed that was there. As the choir's voices waved through the air, it was far from the high, screechy voices that most people think of when it comes to Catholic choirs. It got its strength from deeper tones.
Yes.
This choir may just be why the sound is reasoned to project in sound waves. No matter what the song the choir is singing, there are people keeping the beat, and there's no way sound comes out straight with all that motion. Dr. Laura, aka the residential chiropractor, flips a pencil through her fingers and bounces her right leg. Others sway from side to side on the edge of their seats, like Fala, or simply raising their eyebrows as they come up on a higher note, like Mark F. My dad likes to refer to the choir as a cactus choir. They sing in a Catholic choir but move like a Baptist choir. No one concerned is stationary, least of all Balder. As the music fills the room, he might as well be a 5-year-old with a plastic guitar jamming out to a favorite song. He's light on his feet, bouncing from section to section, giving little hints and tips. Every motion that he makes means something different. A head bob this way or that could mean to cut off the music. Standing on his tiptoes to get a louder sound, or even a facial expression, could change the choir's sound. With Balder playing lead guitar throughout the practice and performance, there's no traditional conducting. His body is the baton. There's a complexity to his movements, but the choir knows exactly what's going on, or at least most of the time. One time, Balder cut off, supposedly, and the choir kept singing as he turned and tried to work with the basses. There was a little argument on whether he actually cut off or not, and then Kim Dudgeon yelled out, "Maybe you should try this for a cutoff," as she demonstrated the traditional cutoff with a wave of the arm. But he can't do that while playing the guitar, Kim, another choir member tagged on to some laughs, but then it's back to work. Balder is picky with the choir's music and works with them until there is an aspect in the song that separates them from an average Catholic choir. He had a special group singing a song called Shalom Aleichem, stay for a 15-minute practice that turned into an hour-long session. He wanted a mysterious tone for this song and wouldn't quit till he had it. When Balder feels the need to work with a small section or an individual, which is often, Betsy will play the chords that the singer or singers need to sing on the piano, and then will be off to work. The people who aren't working might as well be middle school students on Monster. Heavy and my dad entertain themselves at the game of Thumb Wars, and Heavy won. Dr. Laura gives a slight shoulder adjustment to Mark S. while chatting with Fowler. Betsy works out with some tougher piano pieces while giving guidance to the singer who's working with Balder. Everyone mumbles to their neighbors and the room has become chaos. Members come to hang out with the people they like to be around. Members come to hang out with the people they like to be around a little too much. The choir is just an excuse to see them. Some random happenings of this chaos are more interesting than others. One time Balder was playing a chord progression, a couple of notes in a row, to one song, and it reminded him of another song. He started playing If a Picture Paints 1,000 Words. And soon the choir was belting it out, laughing as they sang. The couple teens in the choir and I were completely lost. It's a song from the 70s. As the song ended, my dad yelled out, "Sure, we don't have to practice that song." And the crazy ride continued. Sometimes the chaos is too much for Balder and he yells, "Hey gang!" to quiet them down. He might as well threaten them with homework with how they transform into middle school students. Balder's got a better solution. Pay cuts for everyone, he informs. Definitely an odd statement for a volunteer choir, but as soon as everyone complains about the terrible pay or how they were supposed to get a raise this week, it's obvious that it's a running joke. Balder doesn't get let his paid professionals sit around for the entire practice and gets them up and moving with interesting ways to practice. When the choir is getting sluggish from the long day at work, they stand up to sing. Everyone hops from one leg to the other or leans up against one another as they sing with excitement. When the cafeteria is open, they'll run out there for a song and let their voices resonate off the walls. Sometimes they'll scramble, as my dad puts it, where the sections break up and scamper about the room to a completely new position and area where they sing. When in a circle in the cafeteria and scrambling, there is no order to who ends up by whom. Choir members are comfortable with everyone else in the choir. As members come upon others they haven't seen yet that night, hugs are exchanged. When they're finished with their weird practicing techniques or getting praise from Balder on a completed song, a new energy rises through the choir and everyone has this new shine to their face. They take pride in the music they make with each other, and when they nail a song, cheers go out around. With the way the choir sang a version of the song Gabriel, I could feel that it was their favorite song. As they ended, shouts of glee combined with, "I love that song, and why can't we sing that more often?" drifted around the room. Even Balder's explanation, "It just doesn't fit any other occasion but Christmas," was lined with remorse. This group loves its music and time together, even if practice does end up going a little long. As Balder put it at the end of a practice that went to 10 p.m., "My love for you increases exponentially every hour I'm with you, especially after 2 hours. Pay raises for everyone." With a woo that's floating through the room, Kim turns to me, "Please tell me you got that." Every word. As practice comes to a close, the group gathers in the center of the room for a circle, holding hands and bows their head. Balder gives a blessing for the group, and from then on, anyone in the group puts forth a prayer or blessing held in the depths of their hearts. This is where the group's faith shines. Nothing is off limits in our prayers, my dad explains. The whole group is there for each other no matter what. Some people go to practice just to hang out, even if they aren't going to be at Mass that weekend. Other times it's a release from troubles and a place to confide in others. The choir looks out for one another. Act 2. For each performance, members show up a half an hour before the Mass. As everyone strolls into their Sunday best with their Sunday best on, hugs are exchanged, and the past week, the weekend, and the week to come are talked over. In this pre-performance practice, there's more focus and conversations drift away as people begin to practice little parts of the song on their own. The choir is center stage in the worship space, right behind the altar, a colorful backdrop for the area. Purses are tucked into the corner, and a life-size replica of Jesus on the cross looms over the choir. The piano and an added bass guitar, Sam Graber, are off to Balder's left, while the choir curves off from in front of him to the right. In the practice room, Balder goes with a mixed choir for the performances for a bigger and more complex sound. With a few microphone checks, it's time for the final rehearsal. Balder yells out, "Hey gang," to get the choir's attention. "Full choir in the house today," he notices. The many busy scheduled people find time to be together at Mass. Balder notes that I will be observing again and jokes, "Our ghost is here today. It's kind of creepy having two Mannings in the choir." I thought one was bad enough, to a couple of laughs. Those without new folders observe the Christmas presents given at the last practice, and Balder warns, if you don't have a folder, you're not fired, but you're on notice. With a 2, 3, 4 from Balder, the music starts and Mark F. starts his solo on Putting on the Love. Balder uses the echo effect with the men first echoing Mark F. and then the women. And then the women. Each melody sounds different from the practice now, and the bass guitar and amps to Balder's electric guitar have been added. Balder pats his foot pedal on the board in front of him to get just the right sounds from his electric guitar, and the choir follows his movements with their voices. The last note of practice fades away, and Balder tries to quiet down the chatter that begins. Mark F. turns to me. Women just can't shut up. I can't help but burst out laughing. It was written. I didn't write it. He wrote it.
Comment?
Okay. I said I was in trouble. As Father Giles enters, the Mass
Get over
begins,
it.
and Balder leads a light instrumental. Then a moment of silence for prayer begins, and the same group plays a soft melody meant to set souls at peace. Throughout the Mass, the choir is part of the assembly and responds with the congregation in the processions. At one point in every Mass, a soloist for song goes up to the altar to sing the psalm of the week that relates directly to the Mass's Bible readings. The choir sings in between readings and introduces the main gospel reading with a short Alleluia song. After the gospel reading, some of the choirs sit with their families for the homily, while others set off for the entrance of the church to relax. Balder veers off to mess with the soundboard on his way out, and others make a quick stop by the bathroom. When I managed to sit down on the couches, I heard Mark F., Balder, and Sam the bassist talking about sinuses and ways to clean them out. One had something to do with a hose. Across the way, Heavy and another member were giving each other the loser signs with their hands and an L on their foreheads.
Why would they do that?
Here was the crazy choir that had been bottled up on stage. Giles' voice faded from the speakers in the entrance, signaling the end of the homily, and everyone rushed back into the church space. Time to sing again. Balder went to recheck the soundboard, and Sam walked back next to me. Seeing the notebook in my hand, he suggested, "You're not going to leave out all the nudity and group sex."
Well, you know. Well, it's a standard question.
Unable to contain my laughter at such a statement, I replied, "Of course, wouldn't want all that getting out. Could cause trouble at home." Choir members that were with their families join those coming back from the entrance, and a state of prayer sweeps over their craziness. All that's left is a deep respect for the religion. Once set again, the choir leads the Lord's Prayer, holding hands, and the Mass moves along. After the prayer, peace is given to one another through hugs, and it's time for communion. The choir gets its communion first and sings while the congregation gets it. This is the choir's main time in the Mass, and the featured song was Putting on the Love. The way the choir sings forces the congregation to sing along. Singing with the choir gets addicting. When the Mass comes to a close, the choir's voices lead the congregation out. Claps follow the last note of the song, but we don't do it for the applause. We sing to praise God with each other, my dad explains. Balder made so many adjustments to what the choir had rehearsed in molding to the Mass's procession. Balder's the quarterback that is constantly changing the play at the line of scrimmage, as my dad puts it. With all those changes, one would wonder why we had to practice at all if they didn't see the fun we had at practice. The performance comes to a close, and those done for the week go home, while those staying for the next Mass go into the green room to eat donuts and hang out. It's all they really wanted to do in the first place.
Oh, wow.
Though the choir is made up entirely of volunteers, the musicians that play with them are paid. Sam gave me a little insight into how the system works. He was asked to sub for another musician that couldn't make it, which is how most musicians are introduced to a job. In November of 2006, and was eventually put in full-time. Balder jokes Sam had some gambling problems and eventually owed me $85,000. So we got him for, what was it, 7 or 17 years. Sam laughs. Sam laughs. Indentured servants are for 7 years. Sam related the fact that though he is Jewish, he appreciates playing to make good sounds for spiritual beliefs. He has his own gatherings for faith at Temple Israel in Minneapolis, but Sam writes songs for the choir to sing, Salam Alaikum being one of many. It takes a while for the choir to warm to the musicians because they often change, but Sam fits right in with the choir. Since copying faith music isn't illegal, Sam has fun with copyrights and writes a new one for each song he writes. His particular line for Salam Alaikum is, before copying illegally, I do the smart thing and up your life insurance. The players are just as crazy as the choir. Act 3, the Christmas caroling before the Christmas Eve Mass is one of the choir's biggest performances of the year. Suits for most of the men and dress pants or dresses for the women. They get 45 minutes to entertain the congregation before Mass and their usual Mass songs. The Mass is late, but the choir members are incredibly dedicated to this performance. Few miss it. They arrive unusually early. They arrive the usual 30 minutes early at 8:45 p.m. Each member walks into a parade of hugs and tries to arrange themselves in the now crowded stage area. An oboe, flute, and a clarinet join the choir tonight, and their chairs are placed right in front of Balder. Also joining the stage is a new pianist. And a drum set. Reese adorned the Jesus replica on his left and right, and the entire stage is lit to a heavenly aura. Hey gang, Merry Christmas, is the greeting this evening from Balder. There's no fooling around, and with a call of the instrument players, the first song for rehearsal is underway. Balder's body reflected every pitch in the choir sound and yelled changes as they went. More support, make it round, split. And the males and females changed to more stereotypical tones, breaking unison. They only practiced the beginning of most of the tunes, and conversation between tunes was on music. Piece after piece was rushed through as Balder took time for the entire I Don't Want to Wait Anymore. Though the teen that had the solo in this piece had a little trouble with the song that week in practice, she nailed her part and was cheered as she returned to her place in the choir. The whole choir might as well have been at a football game with how they were cheering for her. After that, the song and the lights in the church, after the song, the lights in the church are turned down. The only light on the choir, he's got this wrong. After the song, the lights in the church turned down. The only light was on the choir, harbored on the stage. It was caroling time. This wasn't his final draft, mind. Balder introduced himself to the congregation and asked them if they wanted to hear some Christmas music. He informed his audience that they would feature some soloists and that the first one would be Mark Schurslick. The whole choir burst out behind him, Fly Shocker! Balder had screwed up on the choir members. He turns to the crowd and says, I'm an Irish having 2 German basses, give me a break. Try and keep track of them and pronounce their names. The whole thing might as well have been rehearsed. The choir went through the caroling without a problem, their voices ringing through the hall. It's clear that the choir favorites were Gloria, I Don't Want to Wait Anymore, and Holy Night. In each song, the risers should have fallen with how much the choir moved and how much energy they had. There was a quality in their voices, a love for the music, and the joy in their hearts seeped into everyone around them. As the last song died away from Christmas Eve Mass, and the choir followed the same procession as other Masses. This time, when the choir went out to the entrance, I was treated to a dramatic performance of Balder falling to his knees, exclaiming, "It's so hot!" due to the incense used in the Mass. This complaining of incense and its effects on the voice carried the small group for a while, how it's so strong it gets caught in the lungs. Balder got theatrical with an imitation of Julio Iglesias and how the incense affected his voice during Holy Night. The group conversed on what could be the incense, and the most logical ended up on being a dead cat. After a wild sexual take on Dr. Laura's profession, the extended homily from Giles ended and everyone rushed back in. Don't know what that
What
was.
was the last part about the sexual?
He said, well, first of all, the group conversed on what the incense could be, and most logical ended up being a dead cat. After a wild sexual take on Dr. Laura's profession,
A wild sexual take?
the extended homily from Giles ended. I think it was something about you just go in, sit down, she messes you up. It's kind of like, just hold me for a little bit, just snaps you and moves on. Or something like that.
Okay.
Okay, the choir went through the same progression, led in the Lord's Prayer, communion first, songs for the communion, and songs for the end. The claps at the end of the Mass were a lot louder due to the caroling, and the choir stays to mingle a bit, though it's almost midnight. My dad goes through what he calls a hug line, getting hugs from everyone he walks by, and a few of them travel to me. With each embrace, I realize the effect these people have had on me. They've had a caring capacity that is unequal. They love one another in ways that lifts one's spirits no matter how they're feeling. As my dad and I drive home, I turn to him. I was tired before we went to Mass. Now I don't think I'll be able to go to sleep. I can't even sing that well, and I wanted to join in. Now you understand why I do it, he replies. Now you understand why I do it, is all he replies. It's all he has to. Okay, almost done. Encore. As I left the choir each time, I couldn't help but want to be a part of it more and more. They're not the stuck-up Catholics, and they accept each new member very warmly with a slight intro by Balder and then getting to know a little background info. Oh, and of course the live sacrifice of a chicken Balder. These members hug one another as much as they sing and establish themselves in each other's lives. Everyone knew what was happening in my life because of my dad being in the choir. They have a strong bond between each other that outsiders can only marvel at. The choir even set up a rainbow organization of some kind to help those who have lost spouses. Prayers that come from this group turn into miracles, and these people are honestly indescribable. If someone doesn't want to join, at least go and watch them for a rehearsal. It's worth more than a Broadway show. Writing about this song on paper doesn't do them justice. The choir gives off this feeling that is more powerful than the choir gives off this feeling that is more powerful that I have left before. Being around them becomes addicting only after a short while. Balder didn't want to do church music after he graduated from college and calls it a fluke that he ended up working at St. Gerards. Yet once he got there, it was the people and in the choir that got him to stay 21 years. In a short time, anyone would want to become a part of this gang. Someone has to be crazy to be around them, but even crazier to want to leave. Just the few people he mentioned here, he's got a little list of the cast characters for people, and I thought some of this was kind of funny. Heavy, Mike Horace, nickname for his size, is a big kid who loves to joke around, sings as a bass. Mark S., Mark Schurslick, the older of the two German basses. I don't know about that.
Maybe not. He's calling you out.
Okay, I told him they're both.
I didn't know what school he went to.
Okay, anyway, the older of the two German basses named Mark, very religious and went on a mission trip with the church this past year. Fala, Anita Spading, nicknamed for falling over at a play the choir used to put on at practice. The very caring woman who will give hugs to anyone, sings as an alto. Dad, Tom Manning, the wise guy of the group who brings up all the jokes. Heavy's partner in crime, sings as a bass. Yeah. Pat Balder, director of the choir, will do anything to get a weird reaction out of someone. Sam Graver plays his bass guitar in the rhythm section of the choir.
Opposite.
Though Jewish, he writes songs for the choir to sing. Betsy Vanslow, liturgical director of St. Gerards, plays piano and sings for the choir. Dr. Laura, the residential chiropractor who gives adjustments throughout the choir, sings as an alto. Mark F., Mark Fleischacker, the younger of the two German basses. one of the main soloists. I told him, I don't know, they're both old.
He doesn't know.
This one I thought was Father Giles, head priest of St. Gerards, and Kim Judgeon has known Balder for most of her life and is the main one opposing him in arguments. Sings as an alto. Face it, Kim's known you longer, she can get away with saying stuff.
From Foley.
From Foley. But anyway, I know he got an A on it, as he does with everything, but he hasn't decided which college he's going to yet. But this, like I said, this was not his final copy and stuff. I don't know what he did with his final. The actual one he turned in, he did not get.
Very good.